Good morning. Hey, today I want to do a quick video for you to pay attention to after we get done with the third diagnostic so that we can go ahead and get through this lesson over finding the unknown angle measurements. And that's whenever you've got different right angles, acute angles, obtuse angles, and then you've got to find what x is. So I'm going to give you a few examples, and then I'm going to let you on your own read your family letter, look in your book, and then try to answer some of the questions on a worksheet after watching this video, and maybe it'll help you some. All right, so I made you a little paper, and I'm going to pass this out to you, but I want to make sure that everybody sees this and has this. This is your different types of angles. So we've got right angle at the very top. That is your 90-degree angle. That one looks like an L here. So that is considered a right angle. An acute angle is less than 90 degrees. See how it's small or like tiny. So always think that tiny things are smaller, things are cute. And so that would be anything less than 90 degrees. So if you solve for a measurement and the measurement is x is worth 32 degrees, then that would be an acute angle because that is less than 90. So anything less than 90 is an acute angle. Now, an obtuse angle is a large one. That one is bigger than the L that we see up here. That one is much wider and fatter, and that would be that would equal more than 90, but it's got to be less than 180 because 180 is straight across. So anything that's greater than 90, so fatter, I always think of that big fat O right there. Anything fatter than 90 but less than 180, so say 110, 120, 97, those are obtuse angles. So you need to know those angles first before we get started. All right, so if you need to pause this, make sure you've got this somewhere. The second little worksheet that I made for you shows some more angles. And make sure you've got this one. We start at the top with a right angle. Again, a right angle is the 90-degree angle. So anything that is, any angles that are within or inside of the 90 degree have to add up to be 90 degrees. So if you can barely see it, half of that 90 degrees shows 32, or some of it, and the other is x. Well, since that is a 90-degree angle right there, 32 plus whatever x is has to total 90. When two things add up together to give you a 90-degree angle, those are called complementary. Complementary is when they add up to be 90 degrees. So if you can see right here, we've got x plus 32 equals 90. I don't know if you can see that good. And then you solve like normal, and you solve for x. X is worth 58 degrees. So 58 degrees would be what x is worth. So that would be 58 for x and 32 here. And both of those add up to give you 90. So those are complementary angles. All right. Now, since that x is worth 58, remember if you wanted to know what angle that little x angle is, that's acute because it's less than 90. And that 32 also is less than 90, so those are acute. All right, straight angles. Straight angle is 180. That is half of your circle. Your whole circle is worth 360. So any straight angle or half of the entire circle is worth 180 degrees. That would be just half. So anytime you see a straight line, a straight angle, anything on the same side of the straight line has to total to be 180, right? Just like the one up top had to total to be 90 degrees, anything on the same side of a straight line has to total to be 180. So look at this line here. Look at the straight line going up and down right there. You can barely see it, but everything on this side of that straight angle has to total to be 180 because it's half of your entire circle. So on the top, we've got an x, and here we've got an x plus 4. So those would add up to be 180, and down here I've got it written out. It is, you can barely see it, it is x plus 4 equals 180. It has to total to be 180, all right? And then you solve for x. So if you solve for x, you should have gotten 88. That means that 88 at the top and 88 plus 4 should total to give you 180. Now, any angles that add up to be 180 are called supplementary. Supplementary is a pretty long word. Supplementary adds up to be 180. Complementary is 90-degree angles. If they add up to be 90, it's complementary, but if they add up to be 180, that's supplementary. All right, and then two other little angles that you need to know at the bottom. You should have this paper. Vertical angles are directly across from each other, so I've got that shaded in. Verticals across from each other. And then adjacent just simply means beside each other. So you've got two angles side by side that are shaded in there, and that is adjacent angles. All right? All right, let's do some examples here real quick. Let me pause this video. Hang on just a second. Just a second. All right, goodness gracious. I had to plug in my Chromebook charger. It was about to plug in my Chromebook to a charger. It was about to die. Okay, so hopefully you got those last little angles, and we're going to do a couple of problems together so that you can understand a little bit better what I mean about complementary, supplementary, 180-degree angles. All right, so I'm going to draw some lines right here, and you're going to look at the different types of angles there are. I should go right through the middle. And let's see, this one's 32 degrees, and this one is X degrees. So let's look at this one together. All right, when you look at this one and we are solving for X, you need to pay attention to the fact that X and 32, if you put those together, they are right in between a right angle here. And that right angle should total to be 90 degrees. We learned that on the little worksheet that I gave. Anything that looks like an L like this should total up, everything inside of it should total up to be 90. So if they're asking you to find the measurement right here where this X is, they might give you little letters like find the measurement of A, B, C. And that means in between these right here. These right here. So if they're asking you to find that and you know that 32 plus X has to give you 90, then all you do is subtract 32 from 90 to find out what X is. So you should say X plus 32 has to equal 90. X plus 32 must equal 90. And so that should be an easy way to solve for X. Then you just solve like normal, and get your answer of 58. So now we know that X is worth 58 degrees here, and that's how we solved for X. Should be very, very easy. Make sure you look at what kind of angle it is. This would have been a 90-degree angle to solve for X. All right, let's do a different one now. Find another kind of easy one for you. That one that we just did came directly from the book. See if we can find a 180-degree angle. Yeah, here we go. All right, this one's straight across, sideways, and this way. Okay, so on this one here, it gives us just a couple of different values, but not all of them. And I'm going to show you what to look for. All right. So this is one out of your book. It is on page 613. If you want to get your book open to page 613, this is the exact problem there. All right. Now on your worksheet, you should have learned what vertical angles were. Vertical angles are those angles that are directly across from each other. So this angle here in blue and this angle there in blue are vertical angles. Vertical angles mean that those angles have the exact same measurement. They're directly across from each other, but they have the exact same measurement. So if this one at the bottom is 6x minus 1, then that vertical angle directly across from it also has to be 6x minus 1. Okay? If you're supposed to be solving for X or solving to find out what a particular degree is, I'm going to show you how. Remember that anything on one side of a straight line has to add up to be 180. So everything above this purple here, I just drew a purple line. Everything above that straight line right there, all of that, which is half of your circle, those would be called supplementary angles, and they have to total to give you 180 because that's half of the entire circle, right? So you should be able to write this out. You should be able to say 67 plus 6x minus 1 plus 42 equals 180. So you just write it simple like this. 67 plus 6x minus 1 plus 42 all has to equal 180. Okay? And now you just have to combine your like terms and solve. If you do combine your like terms and solve, then you should, at the bottom, figure out that x is equal to 12. You should know how to do that algebra right now. So x is equal to 12 if you solve for x here, right? You just combine 67 minus 1, that's 66, 66 plus 42, and then you'd have that plus 6x and solve, all right? So just know that if it's a supplementary angle, everything on one side of a straight line has to equal 180 degrees. Okay. That was on page 613, right? 613. All right, let's see. One more good example, and then that should be it for today. Okay, that's a straight line. This is a straight line here. Okay. This one here is also another example of supplementary, right? Everything above the straight line has to total 180, right? So that is 3x plus 5x plus 36 equals 180. 3x plus 5x plus 36 equals 180, right? Maybe you could pause and try to figure that out for yourself for just a second. Okay, so I went ahead and solved this for you. Look at your work and make sure that you combined your like terms correctly and then solved to get x alone. If you did that correctly, then you would have gotten that x equals 18, right? So we have x equals 18. But if you look at the book, this is the example on page 618 in your book, number 4. 618, number 4, and I want you to pause and look at that. So this is the exact same problem, but it wants us to find the measurement, this little measurement thing here. That's a measurement symbol. Find the measurement, I think it's supposed to have an M, the measurement of BEC. BEC, well, BEC doesn't have anything right there. It doesn't have a 3x, it doesn't have a 5x plus 36, but it wants us to find the measurement of BEC. What did we learn vertical angles were? Vertical angles are ones that are directly across from each other. And remember, if they're directly across from each other, then they're worth the same thing. So if this over here is 3 times x, then BEC here has to be 3 times x also. So if we know that x is 18 and this is 3x, then BEC here has to be 3 times x, 3 times, we found out that x was 18, and therefore BEC, the measurement, is worth 54 degrees. So do you see how we solved for x first? We solved for x by looking at our angles. You either look for a supplementary or complementary angle. 180 degrees is the straight line, and 90 is the L, the right angle. Solve for x, and then when you find x, you can use that value, 18, to plug in. Well, what if they wanted to know DEC? DEC would be vertical to this one. 5x plus 36. Can't see that well. 5x plus 36. So then you would just plug in 18 for the x and solve for that. And that's how you would find the measurement of DEC. All right. That's all for today. I hope this helps. This is only going through session 2 on lesson 28. So if you get through pages 618, we're going to start back on session 3 and 4 all together next week after we're all done with our diagnostic. But this is a really good little preview and addition to the Edpuzzle that we got. If you have any questions, you can email me or find me during class. Come see me during Blazer Focus, and I'm here for you. All right. Thanks, guys, for watching the video.